Dr. W talks, Religious Views of Criminal Justice. Most religions have some concept of divine justice, whether that is the ultimate fairness and balance provided by karma, or the idea of an omniscient God who has the right and power to judge us all. But the focus here is often on the afterlife, giving a sense that justice will eventually be done, even if life seems unfair now. The moral codes that tell us how to live now are another important feature of religious belief. In Eastern religions, these are often called the dharmas. In Abrahamic religions, these are focused on the Ten Commandments and other moral teachings in the sacred texts. In all settings, they stress that the way people act towards each other is a crucial part of their response to the divine. Frameworks such as the Golden Rule, treat others the way you want to be treated, come up again and again. These moral codes often set up model patterns of criminal justice and approaches to wrongdoing that we can see implemented in a civil setting on earth. Lex Talionis, traditional retributive justice. Lex Talionis literally means the law of retaliation. It is thousands of years old and has its roots in ancient Babylonian jurisprudence, even predating the Torah. Today, it is generally associated with divine command theory and ethical theism. Many theists believe that God is rightly angered by sin and wrongdoing and will give everyone their just deserts, what they deserve according to what they have done, on Judgment Day. In the meantime, they think it is also important for us to seek justice on earth when wrong has been done. An important part of the role of the state is to give out that justice fairly, thus adopting the role of God the judge while on earth. It is only by doing this that a state can remain functional and maintain order. Even so, theists still believe in the higher power. If justice is not done on earth, eventually God will make it right in his own judgment, or karma will restore the cosmic balance of all things. Vengeance and retribution. Before the theory of the state was so well developed, ancient societies allowed individuals to take action to right a wrong that had been done to them. This resulted in many blood feuds between families and long-held grudges. Taking control over this process was a way of the state keeping order in society, protecting relatives and other innocent onlookers from blood feuds and civil unrest. Ancient Babylonian laws on retribution included the Code of Ur-Nammu, over 4,000 years ago, the Laws of Eshnunna, 4,000 years ago, and the Babylonian Code of Hammurabi, 3,750 years ago. These laws said that the state had the responsibility to give proportional justice to people who had broken the law. Not serving out retribution was unjust. This is also an important feature of ancient Judaism, with ideas such as, whoever sheds man's blood, by man shall his blood be shed. Likewise, one of Allah's 99 names in Islam is the Lord of Retribution. This continued to be an important concept in Christianity. Jesus' death on the cross was ultimately a retributive punishment from God for the sins of humans. Principle of regulation and proportionality. The concept of an eye for an eye, a tooth for a tooth, as introduced in ancient Jewish law, was all about justice being fair and not taking revenge too far. By simply taking one eye for one eye, this meant that blood feuds could not keep going on, and the law would be balanced, as in the famous image of the scales. This also set up a formal judiciary, with the aim of enacting justice to the people. It was important that this was fair and proportional. Originally, fairness meant that an eye for an eye could be interpreted literally. Over time, this came to mean that the punishment should fit the crime, not necessarily in terms of cruelty, but in terms of severity. In this situation, capital punishment could be used for a crime that was extremely severe, equivalent to taking a life, but not for a more minor crime, such as theft. For theft, a fine equivalent to the amount stolen plus damages would be more proportionate. Likewise, for something causing physical harm to someone, physical harm in return was not always appropriate, but a sentence in prison could be given in proportionate severity to what had been done. Proportionality here is a very important concept. This has been passed down into classical sociological theories of criminology. These state that someone who commits a crime becomes a criminal, and the criminal deserves a punishment. In many criminal justice systems today, the state is the arm of retributive justice. People have a right to freedom, and the state has a duty to protect its citizens. Someone who has taken away others' rights to freedom has forfeited their own rights and simply ought to be punished. Some people argue that for a state to enact capital punishment is to go against the law, do not kill, thus making the state as bad as a murderer. However, it is important for this theory of justice that the state has God-given power of retributive justice. It is acting beyond the individual human to mete out a proportional fairness that respects individual rights and is beyond human ability. This is partly why many countries have multiple executioners or hide the identity of an executioner. Each individual involved in an execution is not a murderer, but is instead handing out justice on behalf of the state as a larger body. Reformation-focused justice. This is the idea that the ultimate aim of justice is to bring the criminal to a place in which they're no longer minded to commit criminal acts and can instead form a functional role in society. It can also aim to bring forgiveness and reconciliation between injured parties. This can involve restorative justice. Many see Jesus as the prime model behind reformation and forgiveness. When confronted with a woman caught in adultery who was being stoned to death, he famously said, "Let he who is without sin cast the first stone." The crowd disappeared and left him alone with the woman. He then told her to go and sin no more. He was not letting her off her wrong act, but telling her to reform herself, and he was certainly not punishing her. For Christians, Jesus' death also enables forgiveness and reconciliation between God and humans. This is an ideal for Christians, and many of them want to follow this model of helping people live better lives and be reconciled to each other. Just as God can be defined as the judge, he is also described as rich in mercy. This approach to justice has been set forward by many pacifists and others in the 20th century, but also has ancient precedent in Roman times. In the wake of the apartheid in South Africa, Archbishop Desmond Tutu spearheaded the Truth and Reconciliation Commission. Its aim was to confront the past in order to be able to move forward. This was a way of recognizing the suffering of victims, as well as finding out truth from the perpetrators. Unlike the Nuremberg trials for Nazi war criminals after World War II, these did not involve criminal trials, but offered amnesty to perpetrators in return for the truth. But rehabilitation and reform also have more chilling forms. In essence, it means coming back into conformity with society. Labour camps and concentration camps run by extremist regimes have been presented as forms of rehabilitation. Are the UK's current community service orders encouraging people to reintegrate and give back to society really so far from this? If people choose to exclude themselves from society, can't we consider that to be their free will and allow them to face the consequences? Likewise, there have recently been some high-profile cases of rehabilitation going wrong, such as the London Bridge attack in November 2019, where Usman Khan, a convicted terrorist in a rehabilitation program, attacked and murdered 2 charity workers. However, other reformed prisoners, such as Stephen Gallant, risked themselves to confront the attacker and protect others. Many critics complain that forgiveness-focused approaches to justice do not achieve true justice. Without effective punishment, a crime has not been paid for and justice has not been fully served. Can it ever really be feasible to forgive and forget? Can forgiveness ever really replace retributive justice, or do we need to have a combination of the two? Perhaps religious viewpoints do not have the final answer to this. To understand this more fully, we need to look at theories of justice from other sources too, such as deontological and utilitarian views of justice, and some more modern takes on criminal justice, such as that adopted by the United Nations.